Welcome back to another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. We're co-hosts. That's RJ Schafer. I'm Jackson Caudell, coming to you shortly, a little bit after Georgia Tech's 31-19 loss to Louisville. Um, we'll we'll give our full I watched the game again and everything. We'll get our full hashed out thoughts on everything on Monday, but just kind of a quick reaction here. Um, that was maybe I'm being have a short memory, but that was the most just dumb mistakes I've ever seen Georgia Tech make in a long time in a single football game. I don't know how you felt, but I felt like that was if you want to like really dumb something down to one reason they lost. There's plenty of reasons, but if you really just wanted to hammer it down to one, like it was just stupid mistakes, and like I can't emphasize enough stupid mistakes.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was all across the field. Like offense, the defense was good at times, but you can highlight special teams too. Obviously, that field goal being blocked, return for the touchdown. You have the Haynes King
I don't.
fumble, pass, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, there was so much not to like, regardless of how you feel about Coach Key's decisions. It was a roller coaster today. And if you just look at the stats, like the total yardage, they outgained Louisville. In some stats, they look better than Louisville. If you watch the game, it's easy to see how Georgia Tech lost this game.
Yeah, and like I'll just go off that. Like I won't say like definitely they were the better team, but if you came away from that thinking, well, Georgia Tech might be better than Louisville if they wouldn't have shot themselves in the foot, I wouldn't blame you. But then also you have to shoot themselves in the foot part, and that like that makes you a lesser football team. I mean, like Haynes explained it to us afterwards. It was an option. Like it was like that was it wasn't like he just thought of it all of a sudden. Like he that was an option the whole time. Um, I just think in that situation, when you're about to get tackled, is just not a good time to do it. Like you need to make that decision a lot quicker than
Yeah.
at the very last second. Like it's just with those. I don't know if the right terminology, but RPO or read option type plays there. Like you have to make a split decision, and it's tough, but like you can't wait until the very last minute to do this because you're asking for disaster, and disaster is what happened. I mean, Louisville scored. If I'd have told you the defense only allowed Louisville to score 17, how much does Georgia Tech win by in your mind before the game?
I mean, maybe two scores.
That's why I said I was thinking about that after the game. Like, wasn't there's some things to complain about on defense for sure, but like mostly within pass defense and everything. But like one of the big positives today was Louisville was one of the top rushing teams in the country coming in. We talked about their competition wasn't great. Had 27 carries for 57 yards. That's 2.1 yards a carry. Like that's phenomenal. I didn't expect it. To be honest, like I know Georgia Tech's run defense has improved, but like that's a pretty elite mark. It was the big plays, like Ja'Cory Brooks has a 57-yard touchdown, which would have been a pass interference penalty on. Like it was just a bad all around play on Amari Harvey right there. You had Chris Bell had a 45-yard catch. You had Don Chaney catching the 17-yarder on the fourth down. I mean, and it was basically like oh, those two. Like I mean, Brooks and Bell. They Brooks had 125 yards. Bell had 82 yards. Nobody else had more than 20. Like it was mainly those two. I mean, Louisville averaged 20 yards of completion.
That's
20 yards of
ridiculous.
completion. Like
That's
that is like kind of mind blowing in a way, and it just shows you like it was explosive plays all day. Like on a down to down basis, Georgia Tech was better than Louisville, I would argue, but it was, you know, fourth down conversions, the blocked field goal. They probably still would have lost, but committing and running into the kicker penalty at the end of that game is just stupid. It's and again, you would have had the ball with like it was under 2 minutes, correct? Like they had
yeah.
already done the 2 minute one. So like in all likelihood, you don't win the game, but who knows? Maybe you go get a quick score. I mean, they got an onside kick against Syracuse. It's not insane that they'd got another one, but you cost yourself a chance to win because of just stupid stuff. Um, I don't know if another way to put it. I And another thing, like when you lose, you kind of start off with the negatives before you really dig into the positives. And there were a couple of positives in this game. Like it wasn't just totally negative, but I don't know. Like the running game has a lot of things to figure out because for the second straight game against a Power Four team, like not counting VMI, nobody but Haynes King can run a ball.
Yeah.
Jamal Haynes
And to
carries for 25 yards.
yeah.
What were you gonna say?
And to your point earlier, like I want to talk about the fumble really quick.
Yeah.
If you know that that's something that's going to happen, if that was an option play and not a spur of the moment, why would you call that play within your own 10 when you know that there's an opportunity for a fumble? It just seems like backward play calling.
I'm assuming
But
it was maybe the look the defense gave, like, hey, if we get
yeah,
this look, we can run this. I'm not defending it. I'm just like, I guess, trying to justifying it a little bit here. But I agree with you. Like running that inside your own, but when you're backed up like that, I don't think is a smart decision. I just and like I want to see some like, and if like I think of Buster Faulkner as a very creative offensive coordinator, but like with the running plays, like it just feels like you have one or you have two beats here. You have run it up the middle, and you have Haynes King designed run. Like Haynes, unless it's a designed run, he doesn't really keep it on those read option plays. I mean, am I correct in saying that? Like it feels like unless it's like a called run for him, he doesn't really keep those. It's just like you're just trying to pound it into the middle, and it hasn't been working. And there's been nothing like outside or anything. And I'll have to go back and watch the game again to really dig into it. But it just feels like there's a little bit of a lack of creativity in the running game. Personally, I don't know how you feel
yeah,
about
yeah. And when you have Haynes King as your leading rusher, that's not sustainable. You're not going to give your quarterback 14 rushes in a game. I know Brett Kia said we're going to get him out there. Obviously, running is his strength. I'm fine with that. Under 10 carries a game is where you should be. You should not have to rely on your quarterback to run the ball because your two biggest running backs in that game, which was Trey Maddox and was Jamal Haynes, they averaged combined less than 2 yards a rush. Jamal Haynes 2.1, Trey Maddox 1.8. It just seems like there was no going anywhere. And maybe that's on the offensive line. I would say that was probably the biggest problem on the offense. And the fact that when you ran a run play, the defense know exactly what was coming. It was between the tackles, hand off to Jamal Haynes this way, hand off to Jamal Haynes that way, hand off to Trey Maddox this way. It just seems like there was not a lot of variety in the run game. The one positive you can take with that, they were a little bit more explosive in the pass game than we've seen in the past. But it seems like Georgia Tech has completely flipped on their head from last year. Because last year, the Jackets got the ball ran over them all the time. We haven't seen that this year. They looked really good against the run. Last year, Georgia Tech was extremely good at running the ball. Very versatile. Jamal Haynes, averaged 5 yards a rush. We haven't seen that. It's kind of flipped on their head to where Georgia Tech is elite against the run on defense, not very elite with the run play on offense.
Yeah, I mean, and they've had like they ran for 190, I think, against Florida State. They had a good rushing day against
Yeah.
Georgia State and VMI, but in the last two games against Power Four teams, yeah, man, we run the ball. And I do want to point out Louisville's defense is good. Like their front seven is very good. We talked about this. We had some not concerns. Like the secondary is probably the most questionable part of their defense, as we saw. But like they've got to figure this running game out, and because I mean, Syracuse is not a strong defense, is what worries me. Like their defense is not very good. You saw it last night; they're not very good. But going forward, you're probably not. You don't face a good defense until you play Notre Dame. So you have a bye week. I don't think Duke's defense is very good. I know they're winning right now, but I don't think their defense is very good. I think every Georgia Tech fan knows North Carolina's defense is not good. They saw it today. They probably didn't even need to see today, but they saw it today, and they know North Carolina's defense is not any good. So, like, hopefully you can get some success going in the ground game, but like they're going to have to because, like, you know, I thought for a little bit there, I thought Haynes King was going to single handedly win them this game. Just he made really good decisions when passing the ball. There were a couple. Like I know he had it's like a 35 yarder to Jackson Halls on a 3rd and long. I think he had one to Chase Lane. I want to say there's a 33 yarder. My bad. I know he had a, Avery Boyd had a 28-yard catch, and then like Malik Rutherford was awesome today. Like honestly, like I can't really say anything negative about his performance. Um, but yeah, like there's just too many dumb mistakes against a good team, and I think Louisville's a good team. It's just going to cost you. And then again, like there was a couple of times I would be interested to see some advanced stats where I do think they affected the quarterback a little bit. They didn't get a sack, but I thought there were a couple of times when they blitzed that they were able to do a little something. But the coverage was just bad on a handful of plays. It was, you had some deep crossing routes on when they did blitz, and like credit, like it just shows you like Jeff Brom, when he knows what's coming, he knows what to dial up in those crossing routes. Like they were able to beat the man coverage and pick up first downs. And you had some of the deep balls like the Ja'Cory Brooks touchdown against Amari Harvey. And then Chris Bell, that literally was a crossing route. Like he just went over the middle, beat his man, and there was nobody else there because they blitzed so much. So you had a handful of plays. They weren't able to run the ball all game. But when you can't, still didn't have any sacks, and you only had 3 tackles for losses as well. Like you didn't create enough negative plays when they were on offense to kind of push them back. Like I think you got lucky in a sense with some penalties because look, Louisville committed 7 penalties, like, and some of them were bad, but I do think I didn't like some of the calls there, to be honest. Like, just to be completely fair. So you had that stopped a couple of drives of theirs. Was it some penalties that they had, but um, all in all, just not a good game. If you even wanted to have some faint hopes of at least staying in, you maybe didn't make it, but staying in the ACC race, that's pretty much done now. Like you have 2 losses. Louisville has a 2-game lead on you and the tiebreaker. Now, I guess let's just set it going forward now. Going off that, like I still think a bowl game is still pretty makeable. It's your margin for error shrunk today a little bit, but the ACC games I think are all very very winnable. Miami Miami definitely being the toughest one. Like Duke is a winnable game at home. I definitely think they can beat North Carolina. I think they can beat Virginia Tech, and I think they can beat NC State. I mean, every ACC team except Miami and Duke looked bad today. In terms of the ones left on Tech's schedule, like North Carolina looked dreadful, NC State looked horrible, Virginia Tech didn't look great, and they lost to Rutgers. They've already got 2 losses this season, so um, I still think a bowl game is pretty attainable. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I'd say so. And to your point, Miami hasn't really looked great today because I mean, as we record this, it's 22-15. South Florida's driving, so
And this is a tricky game. I'll say, like South Florida is good.
yeah. I didn't think that was going to be a blowout game, but a little bit closer than we expected. I think you can go out and beat Virginia Tech. I still think the ceiling is 8 wins, 9 wins, because I think there's 2 games late in the schedule that I don't think you have a chance at, but I think you can beat NC State after what we saw, and I really think, especially at home, you can beat Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, I'll still stand by my claim that Georgia Tech is good enough to pretty much beat anybody on the schedule. They can probably also lose to anybody. Like they still are just they're a pretty good but flawed team. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that showed today. Like they did some good things, they did some very dumb things, and it prevented them from winning on the road against a good team. At the end of the day, that's what happened. But they're going to be off next week, and then they will be back at home in Bobby Dodd. October 5th, I think, is the date. It's been a long
Yep.
day, so but I think that's the date. So that'll be the next time we get to see them in person. So you got a couple weeks to get ready for Duke. That's you need to win that game. Like, you really, really need to win that game. Like, they could still be 5-2 heading into the Notre Dame game. Like, I still believe that they could. Like, Louisville is a good team. Like, you lost to a good team that you should have beat today, I think, if you didn't commit some dumb mistakes. But at the end of the day, they made those mistakes and they lost. So that's all there is to it. But I know it's really hard, guys, tuning into a podcast, any podcast, no matter how long you've been listening to it or how much you like a podcast. When your team loses, like, I know it's tough. So we do appreciate those that do listen. It's very, very much appreciated. If you didn't won't mind dropping a like, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell to know when we got new content out. We will still, the bye weeks will not slow us down at all. We will still be here making plenty of content and everything and getting some videos out. If you're listening on podcast form, we would really love a 5-star review. Maybe it's 1 star after today. Maybe we didn't do a good instant reaction after a bad loss today, and we deserve a 1-star review after that one. So that could be completely fair. But yeah, definitely give us a follow there. RJ, anything else, man?
I will say the next 2 games in the schedule for the rest of the games that they have, that's probably the easiest 2-game stretch. You could argue Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, but I think you go in. I'm not saying those are easy games, but Georgia Tech definitely has an alley to get back on track. So I don't want people to think that this is the end of the season for the Yellow Jackets. Like this was just one game, and there's plenty of football left.
Yep, it sucks because it was so winnable, but
yeah,
still plenty of football left, and I'll be anxious to see how they look after a bye week. But we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.